Hello, and today I will be debating the two different sides of the Scottish referendum. Now, the question posed by this is if Scotland should break away from the United Kingdom or not. And to be quite honest, with posing such a political and deep topic, there really is no right or wrong answer. Now, that being said, there definitely is a situational one, so that's what we will be discussing. And in my thorough studying and careful thought, I do not believe that it would be a wise decision for Scotland to break away from the United Kingdom right now. So, that being said, let's talk about some of the setup. In 2016, there was a public vote that was backed from the UK saying that 55% of the population of the UK wanted Scotland to stay in, as opposed to 45%. And then there was another push at the end of 2016 where the Scottish voters backed to stay by 62 to 38%. Now, those numbers are drastically different, but the UK as a whole voted for them to stay 52 to 48%. So the UK still wants them, but Scotland kind of wants to push out. And that's been like this for a little bit. Now, the question posed by it is there going to be another referendum? And according to the BBC News, under Scottish independence, they think it would be likely because the Prime Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, is openly pushing the movement within Scotland. The majority of the people of Scotland want it to happen as well, according to new polls and votes. Here's why I think it would be unlikely. One, the majority of the English people don't want it to happen, so without a majority vote, it most likely won't. But that being said, the odds are at my stake. The majority of Scottish Congress also doesn't want the split to happen just because they see the economic and political values that it would cause on the country itself. Now, why would it make sense under certain circumstances? Well, for one is money. The North Sea is the biggest portion of oil-bearing property that is owned by the UK. Now, if Scotland were to break away from the UK, then they would have 3/4 control over the North Sea. And what does that mean? Well, that means that they would own the sea. They would be able to make about 1.5 trillion pounds over the course of 10 years to put into their treasury from the future oil. Now, these numbers seem very, very vast, but they would only make about 5 billion of it from the first year, just because of how oil harvesting works and how all that works, and then implementing new technology. And that's about their net. It's about 5 billion. So it seems like a lot, but it's really not for a country, especially one that's new. But another big thing is their voice in the world. Scotland would be considered fully its own country. Given the opportunity, they would make their own decisions without the UK's opinion, which is huge, especially on Scottish policies and voting and everybody's life day to day in Scotland. They would be more free with government spending due to its own legal system that is outside of UK's authority, and they can do what they want. Another big thing is their political engagement. They would be given more worldwide political power and authority, and they would be taken much more seriously in war engagements, which isn't necessarily a big deal. It's not a big breaker because we're not going through a bunch of wars right now. But if we were to, then it would be huge. We would be able to fund our own military, our own militia, and not be reliant on the UK. Now, with all those good things being said, here's why it doesn't make sense right now. One, because changing the legal system would be horrifically difficult. It's difficult enough to throw out some old politicians who aren't doing their job well, but imagine trying to bring in so many new ones that aren't UK authorities. Now, this being said, COVID has lowered the economic stance of Scotland's welfare, and it would be a bad economic move, especially right now. Finding a system that is new as well as better than the one in place now would be difficult on top of COVID and finding those political leaders. Now, another thing to take into consideration is the currency. Right now, Scotland uses the European pound, which would no longer be considered the currency of Scotland if they were to referend. So that being said, they would need to make their own currency, and they would have to invent it completely with their own funds, no help from the UK whatsoever, and they would have to be able to only use that within the nation. Now, you remember all those pounds that you had as a Scottish citizen? Well, they're not valid here. They're only valid outside of the country. Granted, you can go to a bank and get them exchanged, but that's only if the bank can exchange the new Scottish currency for the pound in the UK. And that, again, depends on how they take things and how they receive things and if they want to make money or not. Another bad part is finding the vote. the majority of the population would need to have a unified agreement. Now, if the whole population doesn't vote for it to happen, there will be division, and we've seen in past historical events that division amongst a new country is never good. It never helps. So, the division itself, in my belief, and in history itself, will destroy the system from the inside out. If they're not completely unified, then they cannot do it effectively. Another thing to consider is the outside citizens. The citizens who live in Scotland but are not able to be represented in Scotland because they do not have dual citizenship. And that makes up roughly around an eighth of the country, but that's a lot of people. If their home gets changed without their vote, then they're going to move, and that's going to throw off the economy even more. And they're going to have problems, and it's just going to be a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want to deal with, especially in a new environment, in a new political environment. It would just disrupt the economy. It wouldn't be good. Now, in conclusion, under the certain circumstances and under the given circumstances, I believe that it would be an unwise political move. The future will always ebb and flow and change, so we don't really know what happens and where it'll take us. And if we get to a point where we can, I think it'd be a good thing, because them having their own voice is such a big thing politically. But right now, it really just doesn't make sense. We must be sound and wise about the decisions that we make through reasonable jurisdiction. Thank you.